Adam and Eve as the body of God. 10. What was God's purpose in creating all things? First, since God does not have a physical body, it was to assume a substantial form. Before the fall, God intended that Adam and Eve become perfect in love and manifest His inner image. That was His ideal for the perfection of Adam and Eve. God needed their forms in order to govern the physical world. Second, God needed a body as a base for multiplication. Once we go to the spirit world, which is the vertical realm, we cannot multiply. In the spirit world we can only connect to a point oriented at 90 degrees based on vertical love, and multiplication is not possible. On the perpendicular vertical axis. In order to multiply, a horizontal plane, a substantial space, is required. With the horizontal plane expanding in all directions, love can form a sphere, which creates the vastness of space. Within this sphere, entities can multiply without limit. This includes human beings, who are to multiply while on earth and then transition into the spirit world. In summary, in order to multiply and raise heavenly people, God created the physical Adam and Eve. Third, God wanted His partners of love to propagate forever. Do you think it would be sufficient for God to create Adam and Eve and love only them? His love relationship should not end just with the people of one generation. God needed their forms in order to propagate the object partners of His love through their lineage. 11. God's purpose in creating human beings was to exercise the dominion of love over both the incorporeal and corporeal worlds, through Adam and Eve. Accordingly, to express Himself as a personal God, He had to have a relationship with substantial persons, Adam and Eve. Through the perfection of Adam and Eve, God's image, namely His external form, was to have been perfected. Standing at the center of the incorporeal world when He created Adam and Eve, God envisioned that their form, appearance, character, and other attributes would resemble His own. Without possessing an external form within the world, He cannot have a dominion of love. 12. The incorporeal God does not have a body. Without a body, God cannot govern the spirit world and physical world. In order to manifest Himself, He has to dwell in a body. The ones in whose bodies He would dwell, His representatives, were to have been Adam and Eve. If they had not fallen, God would have manifested Himself in them. Therefore, Adam and Eve were to have been the first good ancestors of humankind and were, at the same time, to have become God, who reigns over heaven and earth. They were to have been God in substance. That is, they had the responsibility to govern the world in the position of the parents by assuming the image of God who dwells in the eternal incorporeal world. God intended to integrate the spirit world and the physical world according to the form of Adam and Eve. 13. God has no form. Even when you go to the spirit world, you cannot see God. He has no form, but He needs one. He created all things with form, and therefore to become the Lord and ruler of all things, He should have a form. That is why God must incarnate in true parents. Only then can God be the center of both the visible world and the eternal world, and be the parent, the king and the owner of peace. 14. God is incorporeal and has no visible form. In order to manifest Himself, He needs to assume a form. That is why, in order to govern humankind and all things that have form, God needs to manifest Himself in the form of Adam and Eve. Adam, Eve and God were to be one in the flesh, and God was to be the mind of Adam and Eve. Had God and Adam become one, and had God and Eve become one, then once Adam and Eve became husband and wife their marriage would have been one with God internally and externally. When, by loving each other, Adam and Eve gave birth to children, those children would have been connected to God's direct lineage. Love would have bound them together. The reason God created this world is because He wanted to experience such love. God created in order to love. 15. Adam and Eve are God's body as well as God's object partners of love. You cannot love by yourself. Even the absolute being cannot experience love alone. Therefore God's purpose in creating the world was to prepare the realm of His beloved object partners. The world of creation is the museum of love and the garden of love. 16. What good would it be for the incorporeal God to remain apart from His creation? For God to remain invisible is of no use to Him. To be the parent of human beings, God should be able to feel with a body as human beings do. For the purpose of assuming a body, it was necessary for God to create Adam and Eve as beings of dual structure, of mind and body. Why was this? In order to be the same as the incorporeal God, they had to be able to achieve mind and body unity during the course of their life on earth, before departing for the other world. Without having done so, when they appeared in the spirit world, they would not be able to unite with God as His image. God created Adam and Eve with dual structures so that they could attain parenthood and substantial kingship in the physical world, and then become one with God, the incorporeal parent, and manifest substantial kingship in the eternal heavenly world. In short, God created Adam and Eve so that through them He could take physical form,